I have decided to share my story as a way for me to heal, but also because I refuse to allow racists to continue to thrive and be rewarded for their negative opinions and how they're acting, and I refuse to allow racists to get away with it. This is a video to help educate and to also help tell my story, so I do hope that you stay through the entire thing. It may be a little long. I worked at Comcast Cable for 4 years. I moved up in the ranks quickly. I was making a fair amount of money, and I was the Oregon Southwest Washington region home security specialist. So it was my job for Oregon and Southwest Washington to handle home security products, assist people, etc. I was in a group, I was in a team of 5 other individuals and a supervisor. Our manager was a director who still works there. All of these employees, as far as I'm aware, still all work at this company. So this is local. This is the Oregon Southwest Washington region. These are people that live in Oregon. These are people that I came to learn and to know as friends, as coworkers, as people that I could confide in, as people I could be myself around and joke with. Comcast preaches a diversity and inclusion sort of atmosphere. So I find that it is very important for me to tell this story because that is not the case. That is not what happened here, and there needs to be some sort of change to their HR department, to how racism is addressed, to what sort of classes there are. There needs to be way more education in the workplace when it comes to racism. And I have zero sympathy for anybody that says, oh, well, we're in Oregon, we have a small amount of Black folks here. I don't care. That's not my problem. We're everywhere. So I was in a meeting with my 5 coworkers and my supervisor. And sometimes we would get off subject and just BS with each other. And we were talking about our ancestry. The ancestry DNA, and I had actually done mine, and so I figured I would talk to them. And I had done mine because I wanted to trace the other side of my family and learn more about it. I have always known that I'm half Black and half white. I've never been quieted about it. Everybody knows, my coworkers saw me. I wore box braids, I wore weaves. I was very open about talking about my hair. I was very just open in general about my activism. I actually was on the committee and board and launched the Black Employee Network at Comcast, which is an employee resource group that they do generally in every division or are trying to launch multiple. So not only that, I was on that employee resource group, and my team was aware, and they actually came to a couple opening events. So keep that in mind. So we talk about our ancestry. And I say, yeah, I traced mine. It's in like this area of Africa. It looks like it's more west, where slaves came from most of them, when they were taken over to the United States. I was berated with things I've been told my whole life. And for me, it was very difficult. As somebody that is biracial but is obviously light-skinned, I am more white passing or more racially ambiguous is what I'm told. And I think it's bullshit. Because who are you to tell somebody if they are or aren't something? Who are you to tell somebody that they don't look a certain way? So the comments that I was met with were, you don't look Black. You don't look like mixed people that I've seen. And my favorite comment, Meghan Markle was getting married around this time, big in the news. You don't look like Meghan Markle. You don't look like Meghan Markle. Do you know how invalidating that is for somebody that is biracial? That I essentially was told by people that were not Black at all, that I didn't look black to them. They essentially told me I wasn't black because I didn't look like their assumed stereotypes. And I said that. I was shaking. I felt my adrenaline rushing. I was stressed out. I was anxious. I was like, why is this coming at me like this? These are people who should know that are very politically, they try to be more politically correct. They're more like socially aware. Why? And I said, you know that you're perpetuating a racial stereotype by what the media has shown you of what people are supposed to look like, of what black people are supposed to look like, of what biracial / mixed people are supposed to look like. And it just continued. It was them trying to justify to me why they thought that way and why it was okay. And it essentially was, they were talking at me. They're talking at me about me. It was consistent invalidation for about another 5-10 minutes, maybe 10. I think it was about 10 minutes. And it was just consistently beating me down for not being their idea of black. That is why it is not okay. If somebody walks up to you and says, this is a dog. That is a dog. Okay. You don't question it. It just is. If somebody tells you, hi, I'm whatever, that's their name, you don't question it. If I tell you I'm half black or I'm biracial, you do not tell me that I don't fit your idea of that. Black folks come from ivory all the way to onyx in every shade. That includes any type of person that has black in them, whether they're biracial, whether they're monoracial, it doesn't matter. We all come in different shapes and sizes. We come in different colors. We come in different shades. We come with different features. And I do remember I had a coworker that was like, well, your features, I went like this. Is my nose not big enough? Is it not your stereotype? Is that what's happening? My nose isn't wide enough. Fun fact about me, I, for a long time, would contour the outside of my nose with concealer so that it would look larger. So I'd look more ethnic. So I'd look more black. Because my entire life, I've had to try and prove to people and validate my race to other people. And I shouldn't have to. I'm black, that's it. Okay, cool, nice, exciting. That's where the conversation should have stopped. Take it at what I said and leave it. Period. But that wasn't what happened. So I remember looking at my supervisor for help. I remember looking at her, I was just wide-eyed, like, give me a lifeline, shut this shit down, say something, like, do something. I don't care what it is. I was 23 in a corporate environment. All of my coworkers were 20, 30 years older than me, and I was taking 5 people on at once. She looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And I realized that I was alone in this, in that moment. And it made me realize she didn't know what to do. This is a company that preaches diversity and inclusion and a no tolerance policy for discrimination or racism. And that's what I loved. But it was obvious that the training that my supervisor needed, the training that could have helped, because obviously she'd never been in that situation before. My supervisor was white. So it's obvious she just might not know. She doesn't know how to handle that situation. Regardless, it was eye-opening and it was detrimental. And what happened next made it even worse. So we leave the meeting and I go back to my desk and I'm shaking with adrenaline and I'm anxious and I'm nauseous and I'm just upset and I feel hysterics coming on. And I knew with my attendance, I could lose my job if I left, and I didn't care. And I want to talk about my attendance for a minute because that also, I feel, was discriminatory and unfair. Whether it was my race or my age that were known, I do believe that that was also discrimination. So let me just take this side note real quick so you can understand why my attendance factors into this. And I'd like to say that I had great attendance. I got my taxes back 2 years ago, the year previous to this, and to that time, and I got money that was great, and I went to the UK. With the time difference, I messed up the day I was supposed to return, and I came back a day late. Nobody called me to make sure I was okay. They all knew I was overseas. I didn't have any coworkers. I didn't have any messages on Facebook. I didn't have my director, who was the manager at the time, because our supervisor at the time had been let go. I didn't have anyone who called me. You would think that would just be general practice. And when I get into work that next day, I get told, even though I've had no attendance issues in the entire time I worked there. I've never had a verbal warning. I'd never had anything. And I get told, we're putting you on a final. So if you're late, if you miss a day, anything, if you run out of any time off and you need time off, you will be fired. I had nothing on my attendance, and I had spoken to other managers about this afterwards who had employees that had had multiple times when they should have been on finals, but they were able to get out of it for whatever reason. It was a discretionary. And I fought HR back and forth. I went to different HR people within that department. I went higher up. I went to director level, and it was all white people. And nobody wanted to listen or look at why this wasn't okay. You don't just put somebody on a final like that, especially somebody with exceptional behavior and exceptional attendance. And I will toot my own horn. I am somebody that does my best to go above and beyond for wherever I am working. I am passionate about that job. I care about everybody. I want a great customer experience, and that is me. So let's transition back to this story. So that's why I didn't care about my attendance when I left. I couldn't. I was hysterical. I was walking down the stairs to get to my car and was already crying. I shut my computer down and I left. I didn't message anybody. I didn't message my supervisor and tell her what was going on. I left after that meeting because I knew that I was going to have a breakdown and it was going to be really difficult and I couldn't be in that space. And so I did. I cried hard. I called my mom. My mom was livid. I went home and I curled up in bed and I hid under my covers and I just pretended I didn't exist for a while because it was too painful to just have that re-beaten into me again, that I'm not enough to meet your expectation. So the next day, like a good employee, I go back to work because I wasn't ready to lose my job. I needed money. I have a kid. Got bills to pay. Got a dog, you know? And this is just an example of what Black folks go through and endure every day. Worse than what I endured. But it's all racism at the end of the day, and it's not okay. And I went there hoping to talk to HR. And I did. But it wasn't what I thought it would be. My supervisor says, hey, can we have a talk? And I was scared, but I said, sure. And instead of her taking me into the general office we should talk in, she takes me to HR. She doesn't tell me that's where we're going. She just says, let's go have a talk. And I realize we're in the HR hall. So we go to the HR woman I'm assigned, Mary, because every person based on your name or whatever your department has an HR person. And I was hoping for support. I was hoping for corrective action to be taken against my team. I was hoping for education to be given to my supervisor and to my team, and for this situation to open a larger conversation. I was looking forward to using this situation as a way to better the Black employee resource group that I was on. And it wasn't. The first words out of their mouths were, well, especially my HR woman, was, so your attendance, you left yesterday, just up and left. And you didn't tell anybody and you didn't respond. Why? You do understand that you're on a final. Yeah, I do. And I said, after what happened yesterday, I'm sure you spoke with my supervisor, I needed to leave. I was like, I was ready to have a nervous breakdown right there. I was like, I needed to get out of there. And I was told, well, we could have set a room aside for you if you needed to take some moments of time for your sensitivity. My sensitivity. Not if you needed to take time for that discrimination, if you needed space from those people, not we asked them to leave for the day so you could feel safe and secure in your work environment. So you didn't feel like you were in a hostile work environment. No, it was your attendance. It wasn't, are you truly okay? And I explained, I just went through discrimination and a racial stereotyping that was not okay. I was like, what happened in there was racist, and that's not okay. But she continued to steer it back towards my attendance and minimize my pain and my hurt and the situation. And from what I'm aware of, there was no corrective action. There was no education. And even if there was, I bet it was just very small and swept under the rug because it wasn't addressed at all. I sat in there probably like half an hour, maybe a little bit longer, listening to a white woman, two white women tell me that my attendance was more important than feeling safe in my workplace, feeling accepted, and that it was more important than the fact that I had just been discriminated against racially. And I went to my desk after, got my things together, and I left. And I filed a FMLA, leave of absence, for my mental health because the atmosphere with my coworkers was awkward. It was uncomfortable. Every single time I even felt their presence around me, I just heard their words over and over, and I kept feeling what I was feeling, and that was not okay. I was not okay. I was hurt. I can't describe to you, unless you're Black and you've experienced some sort of racism, you won't understand what it's like to be Black. You won't understand what it's like to be biracial and be Black. You don't understand the struggle. You don't understand any of that. Just because you're an ally does not mean you're going to understand. Just because you're some Joe Schmo doesn't mean you're going to understand. But it does mean that you need to listen and you need to help change the world and you need to change racism. My leave of absence lasted a few months. I couldn't go back. Maybe my coworkers felt more comfortable because I was going to leave the company eventually, in a few months anyways, and move to England. But that's not an excuse. And I just quit. I sent an email to my director, my manager, said I'm done. She also never really addressed the racism thing. My director, my manager, the person who it should have gone up to when my supervisor took me to HR, my director should have been there. I don't even know if she knows. Maybe she does. I don't know. She's the one who put me on a final. I just know that I won't be silent, and this is not okay. And I want to share my story, and I hope that you can share it too, because nobody deserves to go through what I did or the things that people go through. And Comcast needs to be held accountable for hiring HR that is incompetent and is not adequately prepared for racial situations. I am so disappointed and disgusted by how it was treated by HR and how I've been treated. And I won't be silent. This is my healing process. This is my story, and I'm going to put it out there. Any retaliation towards any of my friends or family who still work there, that will also be taken as a retaliation in relation to the racism I received. I am Black. I am biracial. But I should not have to justify that to anybody. Right now, look at me. I am biracial. Me, curly hair, without my wig, still biracial. I shouldn't have to take my wig off. I shouldn't have to take my weave out. I shouldn't have to wear braids to be acknowledged as Black, or for people to think they can just be racist. Me having curly hair doesn't make me Black. What makes me Black is that I'm Black. I'm fucking Black, and I'm so proud of that. And nobody is ever going to make me feel less than for being so ever again.